Salute! Captain Cardboard here once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at 10 mana dorks you should be running in your commander decks if you aren't already. You see, in the captain's travels across the cardboard wastes, he has amassed a wealth of knowledge in underused, underloved, somewhat shitty sometimes cards. So I just want to share a couple of those cards with you today in this list. I try to steer away from the obvious stuff. I mean, you know, we all know about Finhorn Elves, we all know about Llanowar Elves, okay? And I try to suggest underplayed stuff that is in a low percentage of decks that I think should see more play. Let me know what you think of this list in the comments. I'd also love to hear about any other cool underplayed mana dorks you have in mind. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. More content like this on the way. Let's get right into it. First card up is Burkish Lumberjack. For a red, it is a 1/1 creature, and it says you can tap it to sacrifice a forest to add 3 mana in any combination of red and or green to your mana pool. EDHREC is saying this is in 3% of the 128,000 decks that this is possible to be running. Okay, this is such a good card in Gruul, and I wish people would play it. Any kind of Gruul ramp list, I think, needs to have this card in it. Anytime you're trying to go fast and you don't necessarily care about sacking those lands, you're just trying to combo off, Burkish Lumberjack is so nice for that. And the thing is, it's a repeatable effect. The cost is great. You can sacrifice it to Skull Clamp later once it doesn't have a use. This even synergizes with one of the new cards from Modern Horizons 2, Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. Makes everything a forest. Now you can sacrifice any of your lands to add 3 mana of any Gruul combination. That's awesome. The only downside is that it's a tap ability, you know, as most mana dorks are. This is a great card, and it's super affordable too. Pick this card up if you're building a Gruul deck and you don't have it in there already. Okay, next up on the list, it's OverEager Apprentice. Oh man, I love this card so much. For 2 and a black, it is a minion creature. It is a 1/2, and it says discard a card from your hand, sacrifice OverEager Apprentice, and add 3 black to your mana pool. The reason why I love this card so much is that it can help you get cards out of your hand and into your graveyard for reanimation. You know, stuff like Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Let's say you're running a Mikaeus and Walking Ballista or a Mikaeus and Triskelion combo deck. You put this card in, you get Mikaeus out of your hand into the graveyard, you can sack it, add the 3 black mana, reanimate Mikaeus with something like Reanimate, for example, for super cheap. The great thing about this card is that you can activate this ability right away. There's no tap effect. You can just do it immediately. So good. It's in 0% of the 299,000 decks that could possibly run it. Now, those numbers are a little bit skewed because this kind of mana dork only fits into certain types of decks where you really want to fill up your graveyard or get certain cards out of your hand. If that sounds like it might fit your deck, and especially if you're running a multicolored deck, because the casting cost, as you can see, it's 2 colorless in a black. So that makes it really nice to, you know, fix yourself for black mana if you need to with OverEager Apprentice. It's only in 815 decks total, which is mind-boggling. Next up on the list, we have Wild Cantor. Oh my god, I don't know how more people are not playing this card. For 1 Gruul mana, it's a human druid, a 1/1. It says sacrifice Wild Cantor, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Again, this is an ability you can use right away. To me, this is like a Gruul blood pet. Obviously, in Gruul, you have other ways to ramp and get mana out, but I mean, if you can use the body as well, it's a 1/1, you can sacrifice it to stuff like Skull Clamp. If you can use this body for anything, really, you should consider this card. It's in 1% of 128,000 Gruul decks that could run it, 950 decks total. And I mean, the fact that you can add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, just immediately off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a new card from Modern Horizons 2, Ragavan. You have Ragavan. Ragavan exiles the top card off your opponent's library. It does not say you can spend mana of any color, though, to cast it. Hey, maybe use Wild Cantor, get that 1 blue mana that you need to cast the exiled card. Super affordable as well. Check this one out, guys. Next up on the list, this is one some of you might recognize, is Devoured Druid. For 1 and a green, it's an elf druid. It says you can tap it to add a green. You can also put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it, and it's a 0/2, so you can do that 2 times before the creature dies. a 2-mana dork. That right away just kind of makes me cringe. But the fact that we can use its tap ability twice in a turn, that can really help get an explosive turn going a lot faster. If your deck is trying to ramp out really quickly and get one specific card out fast in green, I think you should consider this card. This one isn't as underused, I think, as some of the other cards in this list, but I still think it's relatively underplayed, especially for some of the decks I see out there that are trying to really hit a lot of mana fast. I think Devoured Druid should be in a lot of those lists. And just scrolling through the EDH rec page, you can see that Devoured Druid is host to a ton of different combos. Earthcraft and Machias plus this. Right there, you have infinite colored mana. There's so many cool combos that this card could be a part of. It just gets my wheels churning. I love this card so much. Next up on the list, we have a colorless mana dork. For 2 generic mana, it's Millikin. It is a 0/1 creature, and it says we can tap it to put the top card of our library into our graveyard and add a colorless mana to our mana pool. Now, this is a little bit of an unconventional mana dork. It's definitely not going to fit into every deck, but I think in the decks it could work in, it could really work well. I've considered it in my Feld in the Third Path deck. Any deck, I think, that really wants to fill up its graveyard and is casting perhaps a lot of artifacts, or just any deck that uses a lot of colorless mana, Millikin can fit great in. Body can be used for Skull Clamp, as I've mentioned a couple times before. That usually is important in artifact decks like this. Any reanimation deck, this goes right in. Here's the thing, is it better than some of the other mana dorks out there? Probably not. The use of this depends on what color you're in. Again, I mentioned my Feldon the Third Path deck. That's mono red because of Feldon's activated ability to bring stuff back. We want to fill up our graveyard really quick. You know, you have other ways to do that in red, but this is just another one of those ways. It's in about 5,000 decks out there, so it's not super unknown, but I think it could use more love. Ooh, we got a spicy one up next. I love this card. For 1 green mana, it's Tinder Wall. Ooh, this is a great card. It is a 0/3. It says for 0 mana, we can sacrifice it to add 2 red to our mana pool. We can also pay 1 red to sacrifice Tinder Wall and have it deal 2 damage to target creature it is blocking. Okay, that second line of text isn't really that important. Maybe you could find a use for it somewhere out there. The first line of text is really all we care about here. You can sacrifice it immediately, no tap, add 2 red to your mana pool. You go mana positive with this. Gruul decks should be running this. Not that many are, though. Again, I get it. You have ways in green and red to ramp aside from this, but man, if you can use this creature, if you can use the body somehow, and if you're trying to go fast, this is a great card. It's in 2% of Gruul decks, 2,000 decks total. I think this card should get more love. It's super cheap as well. Definitely give this a look. Next up, for 1 and a green, it's Urborg Elf. This is a dope card. Guys, I know it's another 2 mana dork, but hear me out. It's an elf, it's a 1/1, which is great, and you can tap it to add green, blue, or black, any one of those Sultai colors to your mana pool. I think this is an awesome mana dork for Sultai. It's in only 1% of the decks that can run it, 585 decks. Look, you have so many options in Sultai, okay? You have all the options in the world in these color combinations. I still think this card deserves a consideration in your deck, and here's why. Flexibility! This is so flexible. How many ways do you have in your deck to make all 3 of your colors? This card is super affordable too. Guys, check this card out. Next up, right in line with Urborg Elf, it's Druid of the Anima. Guys, for 1 and a green, this is an Elf Druid. It's a 1/1 body, and it taps to add either red, green, or white, any one of those Naya colors to your mana pool. Pretty much everything that I said about Urborg Elf applies to Druid of the Anima. It's in 1% of the decks that can run it, 949 decks total. Super sacrificable body, super affordable. I mean, yeah, these cards are basically worse versions of Noble and Ignoble Hierarch, until Wizards gives us the big Noble Hierarch for Jeskai. You know, I mean, we're just gonna have to do with these for now. Next up, for Simic mana, it's Kiora's Follower. It is a merfolk creature. It's a 2/2 body. Its ability reads you can tap it to untap another target permanent. Okay, let me read that again. Untap another target permanent. Guys, this card is crazy. It's not just even a land. You can untap literally anything on the battlefield straight up. Let's say your opponent has a static orb on the battlefield that they've been messing with y'all with. They tap it down on the previous end step to break parity. Oh, no, just kidding. You can't do that because I have Kior's follower out on the battlefield. I'm just gonna go ahead and untap it, and now you can't untap more than 2 permanents, okay? Same thing applies with Winter Orb. This also goes infinite with Kiki Jiki, combos with a ton of other stuff. Just check the EDH rec page, okay? It's affordable. I mean, this just checks every box for me. It's in only 7% of Simic decks. Again, Simic is a color pairing with a world of options, but I think this deserves a consideration in a ton of different decks that care about untapping and tapping stuff. It's got so much utility that I don't think you're ever going to be sad having this in your hand. Okay, number 10 on the list, the last card, coming in at 2 black mana. It is Basal Thrall. Guys, I love this card. This is basically like a slower blood pet. I think in mono black decks especially, this card will shine if you are trying to go fast. If you need those black mana symbols en masse, this is one way to do it. In certain decks, you're trying to get Adnaz out, you know, turn 3 as fast as you possibly can. I mean, Basal Thrall can help you do that. So if you haven't seen this card already and you are running a mono black deck that's trying to go quickly, think about this card. So guys, those are my 10 mana dorks that I think you should be running in your commander decks, or at least considering if you haven't already. I hope you at least learned about 1 or 2 new cards in this list. Let me know what you thought of the video. Until next time, it's Captain Cardboard signing out. Salute!